let's take it back from the State House to the state. We're on the line. Joining us is Rob Cornicelli. He's president of president of Veterans for America First. Welcome, Rob.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be on your show.
Hey, thanks, Rob. Hey, we're here in Vermont, in case you didn't know. And as you know, our state's kind of left-leaning. So what is your organization, and how does it fit into what can take place here in Vermont?
So Veterans for America First has a couple of missions. First is to try to convince or support veterans to run for office. You know, veterans have some special skill sets that fit them in perfectly for elected office. So we like to find veterans throughout the country to run for their local elections, state elections, congressional and U.S. Senate races. They fit so well into following their morals and values. You know, we in the Army have the acronym leadership, LDRSHIP, loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, personal courage. Veterans follow these values. So you're not going to, unless it's Dan Crenshaw, you're not really going to get a veteran who's going in there to line their pockets. So we push veterans to run for office. We write legislation on the state and national level. We just helped get the HALO law passed in Georgia. It's passed in Florida. We're going around the country to get the hands off our law enforcement officers bill passed. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
No, we're not.
It's a great bill.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, during the Summer of Love, when you had all these protesters in the faces of police officers with their phones and yelling and screaming, well, as a person who's carried a sidearm and a rifle on a three-point sling, you can't raise your weapon if you need to, if someone's in your personal space. So it started out that you can't come within 3 feet of a police officer, so they can protect their weapon and draw it if necessary. Now, if you look at Florida and Georgia, it's 25 feet. So it's now an obstruction charge if you come within 25 feet of a police officer or a first responder when they're performing their duties.
Oh, I never heard of.
You know, and it makes perfect sense when you think about stuff like that. You don't think about it until you're right there in it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So most police officers are taught in their police academies to keep a 21-foot reactionary gap, meaning someone can close the distance of 21 feet in about a second and a half. So you need to respond, and you can't respond when someone's in your face. So now that police officer is a little jumpy, that protester is jumpy. When you're in each other, it's like someone cutting you off when you're driving and you have that nice safe space. Right. You get all agitated. So it's a deconflictions means, you know, to keep the police officers feeling safe and comfortable, and they can perform their jobs. So we write legislation. We drafted the Veterans First Act of 2025, which is a great bill. It's really what we do. We draft legislation to protect veteran benefits, protect law enforcement officers, keep them safe, to make sure our military is well-funded and well-trained and well-equipped.
Rob, I have a question.
That's what we do.
Hey, Rob, I have a question for you. Now, you said one of your missions is to have veterans run for office. I'm a veteran as well. I spent 6 years in the Navy. Yep, and I notice you are as well. So thank you. So how do veterans, if a veteran's thinking about running for office, of course, they're in their state, they have their state, they can rely on their party. And how do they reach out to you, and what kind of support can you provide them? Is there training? Is there money? Are there frameworks that you use? How does that work?
So they can email us, they can reach us on social media. What we teach them is how to be a grassroots candidate, how to reach out to, you know, in New York is where I come from, is New York. It's different than South Carolina. We teach them how to get the support locally. Anyone can win if they knock on doors. You know, most of these candidates, they rely on donations. We need money to send out mailers. That's the new way. That's the lazy way. You can win in almost any state, in almost any district, unless the district's 90% Democrat to 10% Republican. You know, if it's 60% Democrat to 40% Republican, and you look at the percentage of people who actually come out to vote, if you energize those 40% Republicans, you can win. And you just have to get out there, get your message out. We'll help them craft their message. We'll help them reach the elected officials or the party leaders in their districts. We'll help them hone their message.
You know, actually, I like to hear this because, there's in Vermont, there's that's how you got to do it. It's really old school. You got to go door to door. And I've seen in local elections where, somebody may not be politically aligned with a lot of folks on the surface. You would think, oh, why did that person win so handily? And then you look and you realize that especially state races, they can literally have a huge impact by meeting everybody face to face of their potential constituents. And just knowing that there's a connection there, people will immediately gravitate to, as opposed to just getting a piece of mail or a solicitation for money over the phone. It literally is that simple, as get out there and meet the folks that you want to represent, isn't it?
Yeah, when I grew up on Long Island, I only left there 2 years ago, and I had been involved in that party for 40 years. There was this guy, he was our county controller, his name was Fred Parola, and this guy won every time he ran, and his key was shake hands. It's like when you shake another person's hand, especially man to man, not that women are less important, but men remember a handshake. They remember the grip, they remember you looking into their eyes, introducing yourself, remembering their name. That contact with people is what they remember. You're shaking my hand and saying, hey, I'm going to do this for you. Even if we don't agree on everything, even if you're an independent or a right-leaning Democrat, I'm still going to reduce your taxes. I'm going to give you, good police protection, whatever the issue is. People remember that, and that contact was important. What's a mailer? I can say anything on a mailer. I did this when I ran for Congress against one of the 8 Republicans who voted for the January 6th committee. And he had the backing of the party. He was a sitting congressman. He had millions in the bank, and I lost by maybe 1,000 votes.
Wow.
Out of 20. Yeah, because I shook hands.
And you met
knocked
people
on doors.
face to face, and they knew, even if they don't agree with you, like you said, there's going to be, first of all, they're going to remember the common things the commonality that you do agree on. And secondly, there's a connection. So if they want to reach out and be like, hey, how come you're doing this? You can have a conversation. They feel more connected with their representative. And so how do you, it's funny because I've seen over the last few years, like there does seem like there's a lot of veterans, and I think it's great, that are running for office. And it's important on a national level, but I'm also encouraged that you really are talking directly to folks that may be listening right now that may want to run to represent their town here in Vermont. What was the precipice for you to get involved with this organization or get this going?
I learned about Veterans for America First when I ran. I met the president at the time, Stan Fitzgerald, great guy. The great people in South Carolina who were running the party here when I moved here, Teddy Daniels. And I just clicked with them. And they had really been focusing on the grassroots and helping candidates get elected. I brought in writing legislation, and it just matched. We had the same mission, which is fix this country. Put people in who are not in, again, to go in with a net worth of $40,000 and come out,
$40 million.
$30 or $40 million.
Yeah, we're watching that. We're watching that play out right now.
Hey, Rob, I have a question. Good.
Sure. No, go. Please.
I have a question. Is there a litmus? So people are going to want to know, is there a litmus test? And if so, what is it? And then secondary, can you provide a little more detail about the training or the frameworks that you have in place to make a candidate feel more energized or more enthusiastic about running?
Now, when I ran, not only was I a veteran of the Navy, retired from the Army, 4 years in the DIA under General Flynn, by the way, I have a veteran group on the side. It's a 501c3 called Veteran Recovery Coalition. So for 10 years, I had been helping homeless and substance-dependent veterans get back into the workforce. If their car broke down, they can't get to work, you're a veteran. Veterans, people in the military always provided the equipment, the resources, the food. They just have to accomplish the mission, right? Everything's there for us to accomplish the mission. A veteran who is down and out, if you could provide them those resources, they're going to succeed. A homeless veteran, let's just say. But if they run into a problem, they don't have enough money to pay for gas, what are they going to do? They need to complete that mission, so then they feel helpless. And that's when sometimes they commit suicide, or they get homeless, or they decide to they become substance dependent. I look for in a veteran that after they got out, they helped other veterans. That they didn't just stop and go into wealth making. They said, hey, I'm a successful veteran. I'm going to help others either go into the military, come out and transition. So we make sure you've done something for other people after you got out. If you look at Kinzinger and Ted Lieu, they're veterans. Look at Crenshaw, he's a veteran. That veteran status just goes so far. You have to do more. You have to believe in the America First policy.
Right.
You have to put Americans before anyone else. So there's a whole bunch of things that we tag on to being a veteran, but we know you have the basics. If you served, you really wanted to, unless you went in just to get a college degree, your GI Bill, which some people do. Some people become cops just because of the pension and the benefits. Not everyone is righteous, but we weed them out and make sure they're really in it for themselves, for veterans, for military, for law enforcement.
Let's grab some calls for you. Good morning. You're live on the Morning Drive.
That's a quick point and a question. I think that Senator Lindsey Graham has gotten quite rich in the Senate, and he's a JAG vet. But secondly, is this, assuming it's a nonprofit, because it sounds like this is Republican Veterans for America, based on what your guest has said. Is that true?
Is there a specific political affiliation with Veterans for America?
Well, it's not a nonprofit. My veteran group is a nonprofit. Veterans for America First. We don't raise money, so it's not really a non-for-profit or a for-profit. We help people get elected who push the America First platform. And if it's a Democrat who's pushing the America First platform, then we're going to support the person. But you have to push that platform. That's what you have to support.
Gotcha. So it's issue-based as opposed to party-based. All right, well,
It's America. It's America-based. If you're for America, we're for you.
Okay. All right, we're going to take a quick break. Taking calls or text, 888-414-0303. We'll be right back on the Morning Drive.
This is Good morning. Joining us on the line is Rob Cornicelli. He's president of Veterans for America First. The Morning Drive hotline's open, 888-414-0303. Rob, you mentioned DIA. You and I know what that is, but can you explain to the listeners what DIA is and how important you think its role was in the Venezuelan issue that just took place?
So everyone knows what the CIA. It's in every movie. The Central Intelligence Agency. They have case officers, spies, essentially. DIA is Defense Intelligence Agency. That's the agency that General Flynn ran under Obama when Obama fired him for constantly calling out who our enemy really was, and Obama did not want to hear that. So the Defense Intelligence Agency has about 4,800 case officers all over the world doing intel collection. And that's really what these intel agencies are supposed to be doing, which is intel collection. I don't think the DIA had really much to do with the snatch in Venezuela. However, I'm sure they were providing intel according to their policy. Is really as I can say about that.
But as a military officer, what do you think about the precision? Left or right, both are calling this massively precise and well-executed capturing of Maduro. What are your thoughts about that, and what do you see from your perspective as a former officer?
Now, you were in the Navy, right?
Yes.
So when they got Osama bin Laden, right, that was the Naval Special Operations Development Group, or DEV Group. That's SEAL Team 6. So there were other SEAL teams, but DEV Group, DEV, GRU, that's SEAL Team 6. That was a precision strike, and that was amazing. This time, which was good to see, because I did Navy and Army, this was Delta Force. And the snatch is great. We took a dictator out of office. But what's more important, and I always look at our military as a Doberman pincer or a German Shepherd. You have a German Shepherd or a Doberman prancing around your yard, nobody's coming in. Right? That's a show of power. That's a show of force. If every crook in the neighborhood knows you have a German Shepherd and it's locked up in the basement in a steel cage, do they really care? And over the last, if you think about over 8 years of Obama and 4 years of Biden, Russia, China, North Korea, or Iran, Venezuela, they know our capabilities, but they know they were locked up tight, so they could do whatever they want. What Trump did was say, we capability, but we're not afraid to use it. Nobody is safe. No dictator, no cartel member is safe on this planet as long as Donald Trump is in office. And they used to say that about Bush when he first came in, that he was a cowboy, he was going to start World War III. But Bush, not that he was my favorite, but Bush did have that aura about him that if you mess with us, you're going to feel our wrath. And thank God Trump did this. Because now Xi is worried about going into Taiwan. Khamenei is probably in a bunker somewhere.
Actually, he's on a train to Russia, I think.
Yeah. What's his name in Cuba? Canel?
Oh, yeah.
Miguel Canel?
Yeah. Castro.
Time bomb in Mexico, Petro, they're panicking.
So
and that's what we need.
So do you think this has put the rest of the world or the rest of the nations not within, that are not necessarily aligned with the U.S. on notice, saying, hey, you can be against us, but don't play us?
This is the thing people don't get about Trump because of his presentation. He's a genius. When he started talking about Greenland, that is a major shipping route for Russia's subs. When he started talking about taking that, he sent a message saying, we know what you're doing, we know where you're sailing, and we're going to watch you.
It's all about Russia. It's not necessarily upsetting the Danes.
He could care less about them. What Trump did is say, the Western Hemisphere is ours. 1823, Monroe Doctrine said, basically they were talking about Portugal and Spain, but they said, Europeans stay the hell out of the Western Hemisphere. This is ours. And he doesn't care, and I don't care, to tell you the truth, what anyone else says, NATO, Europe, anyone. This is our hemisphere. We give, I would think, about $2 to $3 billion a year to Latin America and the Caribbean in foreign aid. You're talking probably 30, maybe even 50 billion over the last 10 years. This is our hemisphere, and we will control it, and we will protect it. And if any of these leaders think that they can stand up against us, then they're going to be Maduro'd.
Yeah, so this is
the
NIMBYism.
hemisphere is ours again.
This is NIMBYism on steroids. We're going to protect our backyard.
I love the analogy of the Doberman Pinscher walking around the yard.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. If
Yes.
somebody's surfing a street looking at a potential house to break in, they're going to avoid the house that's got the Doberman walking around the yard.
Yeah, everyone has the cameras,
Yeah.
No, that's a crook doesn't care. They know how to get past that. You're not getting past that dog unless you shoot them.
Yeah, there you go.
And is it worth it?
Yep.
For whatever they think is in the house?
So
that's what President Trump did.
We're talking with Rob Cornicelli. He's the president of Veterans for America First. And one of their missions is to help veterans or encourage veterans to run for office. Rob's organization believes the veterans have the integrity and the skills to do so. Rob, how can we reach out to you and encourage more veterans to actually take the plunge?
So you can go to our webpage, Veterans for America First. You can go to Facebook. We have a VFAF War Room on Twitter. Reach out to us. And, we're going to ask you a couple of questions. It's not just, and we never go we never enter a race or help a candidate if there's two veterans in that race. And they're America First. We stay out of it. But reach out to us on social media. Reach out to us via our webpage, and we'll help you out.
So how's it been going so far this year? So we're midterm elections. Have you seen more and more people, more veterans reaching out to you to get involved?
Oh, yeah. 100%.
Especially after this week, right?
Yeah, this energized a lot of veterans to think about entering. Even in Texas, you have a couple of veterans running for lieutenant governor. Veterans are running everywhere, and that's great. They just have to keep up those values that they've been trained in when they get in. Because that money, we're all human. People sometimes get greedy. They see a little bit of money coming in. They get trapped. There are people within our government who will talk to anyone that's in office and say, hey, man, I have this friend for you to meet. And then that friend will put them on to some company that they invest in, and then they get trapped. Stay out of the traps. Don't go for those special meetings where someone wants to introduce you to someone else. go in there, pass your legislation, do your votes, and go back home.
Those intros are like drugs, right? Like starter drugs.
Well,
I ran, and I had many people saying, "Hey, come sit down with me. Come to DC." I said, "No, thank you."
yeah. Well, you want to know something? That's from the outside. You look at that, and our congresswoman, who politically I'm not too aligned with, but I know her personally and watched her political career here and sat in the studio many times. I said, "Don't go changing when you go to Washington," and she went down net worth of about $70,000-$80,000, and now her net worth is in the millions. And it just happens, and I appreciate the fact that you just throw it out there first, and you start talking to people. Hey, go down there, you stay focused. You get to Washington, stay focused.
If you look back, when I ran, I said immediately, I have my Army pension, my VA. I said immediately my entire congressional salary would be donated to veterans groups. I was not going down to make a dime, and that's what you need to hear from these people.
Yeah.
Live moderately, modestly.
There you go. Thank you. Thanks, been
Rob.
talking with Rob Cornicelli, president of Veterans for America First. They're an organization that is encouraging veterans to run for office.
Yeah.